gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's January the 16th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And another recruiting weekend has passed, and the Miami Hurricanes have picked up another transfer commitment, Matt, this time in the form of a big veteran physical tight end by the name of Cam McCormick from Oregon. And this thing just kind of like evolved over the last few days and happened. But you're going to assault me as usual. And you're going to say, Gary, you love everybody and you love everybody that comes here. And you think every single signee is a big deal, yada, yada, yada. And like, I'm prepared for that. Just putting you on notice. I am ready for your assault. But I'm also ready to tell everybody out there that I think this is a really big pickup for the Hurricanes. I'm going to tell you why. They have tight ends. You got a good group of freshmen. You got Skinner coming back. You got hopefully Arroyo coming back off of injury. There's not one of those dudes that's like Cam McCormick. And this guy is a big physical tight end. I would say he's primarily a blocking tight end. We'll have to see what he can get done in the passing game. But they do not have a guy on the roster. There is not a dude at this position that can execute blocking schemes in the running game the way that this guy can do it. And he's an older kid. I think he is going to be an immediate starter at Miami. I think Arroyo will be obviously in a platoon there. I think they will find ways to work Skinner into the offense. No arguments there whatsoever, Matt. I think McCormick comes in and by September is starting for the Miami Hurricanes. And in my book, that means it's a significant pickup. I love it, top to bottom. Your thoughts?
I mean, you didn't mention the most interesting thing. He's a ninth-year senior. Ninth year. Did you mention that? I wasn't paying attention to you.
I didn't. I was leaving something for you. I said he was a veteran.
I mean, this is an amazing story. It's an amazing story. He was a babysitter for Ray Ray Joseph 16 years ago when Ray Ray was a baby. I mean, it's a remarkable story. But I will tell you, it's actually funny because right the day before Cam McCormick committed, so that would be on Saturday, I was in Coconut Grove and I ran into somebody who's chasing Cam McCormick's ninth-year senior championship title, whatever you want to call it. Take a guess. You'll never guess. It's a former Miami Hurricane. I ran into him in Coconut Grove. He was actually right next to, believe it or not,
Lou Hedley.
Close. Somebody, except Lou Hedley's not still eligible. He was. I kid you not. He's standing in front of Starbucks. I'm on my way to get my chai latte with my wife, and I see him there, and he's standing next to a purple dinosaur, like some dude dressed up in a purple dinosaur outfit. Like, I'm not kidding. And I go, Robert Burns? And he goes, wait a minute. He says, I recognize you from somewhere. And I said, yeah, from your nightmares. I'm a sports reporter. And he goes, oh yeah, how you doing, Matt? And I said, what are you doing here with a dinosaur? I said, I know you're old, but I wouldn't call you a dinosaur yet. And he's like, he's got this thing. He's trying to like raise money. He says he's trying to do good for the community, at which point I said, okay, I got to go. See ya. No, I didn't say that. But I did give him my email. I said, I'll donate to his cause. He hasn't sent me an email yet. And then, I did ask. I talked to the dinosaur. I said to the dinosaur, I said, I can't see who's inside there. I'm assuming, is that you, Ja'Cory Harris? To which Robert Burns calmly responded, it's not Ja'Cory Harris. And we went on with our lives. Robert, I always loved Robert as a person. He's a great, great individual. Great person. And he's in his seventh year senior. He's at Connecticut. He said he's a fullback now. And he's going to be playing this year, he saes. So kudos to him. Happy for him. But, it's a similar situation to me. Cam McCormick, you say he's going to be a starter or whatever. He's not as good as Elijah Arroyo. He's not as good as Jaleel Skinner. He's just really old. He's just really big. he's just like pretty strong. So yeah, he's a run blocking tight end. The only reason I think he's a great pickup is A, he's gone in a year, and B, he's really not going to threaten anybody on the roster for playing time. It's the perfect piece to add to the locker room. A guy who nobody worries about him stealing your reps because unlike Gary, he's a run blocking tight end. He's not an every down tight end. And B, he's got great leadership skills. I mean, I'm guessing that because he won't respond to any of our DMs to do an interview. I'm assuming he has great leadership skills because he's 48 years old and he should have learned some life lessons by now. So yeah, I'm fine with it. 1 year and gone, like those guys, I'm fine with those guys, you know. And the tight end blocking was terrible this year, terrible.
Horrendous.
So I mean, look, if they really need a run blocking tight end, they can't figure out any other way to do it except to bring in a 9th year guy who can't do anything except block. All right, fine, whatever, man. Whoever the new offensive coordinator is, I hope he can use him real well.
All right, well, just to give people some background, I mean, this
you
is
missed the whole new offensive coordinator thing. Whatever, continue. I don't care.
Well, just to give people some background on McCormick, he had season-ending knee injuries and Achilles tears for 4 straight years. Okay, like just incredibly bad luck, but it speaks a lot of volumes that he hung in there. And last year, he made it through the entire season. He actually had 8 catches for 60 yards with 2 touchdowns at Oregon. He's 6'5", 260. His blocking grades with Pro Football Focus was 66.6% as a run blocker and 71.4% as a pass blocker. So that's about average by Pro Football Focus standards. But Miami was way below average with everybody else at the tight end position last year that was trying to block and be an asset in the running game. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, whoever the offensive coordinator is, and right now it's still Josh Gaddis. He has not been replaced yet. I know everyone's waiting at the edge of their seat for some news to drop there.
There was some news that dropped there yesterday, Gary. We sort of
because he has not been involved in recruiting. And yes, there is no doubt that there is a very strong likelihood that Josh Gaddis is not going to be the offensive coordinator this year. But it's not going to be. It's not necessarily going to be the way everybody would like to see it play out, because it makes sense for Josh Gaddis. It makes sense for Miami football for Josh Gaddis to basically go out and see what his other opportunities are and be in control of the narrative of this situation, as opposed to what a lot of fans would like, which is to have him, kicked out the door. And that's not really fair. I mean, quite honestly, when you look at the fact that he came here off of a really high point in his career, he was the Broyles Award winner, and the fit wasn't great here. Plus, they had an enormous number of injuries on offense. So I think that there's an understanding that maybe something different needs to take place, and I think it will. But I don't think that inside the program, whether it's Mario or anybody else, I don't think they're looking to, embarrass Josh Gaddis, kick him out the door. Like I said, I think everyone's very happy to let this thing sort of evolve at its own pace and see what other opportunities Josh Gaddis might have. I've heard that there's some scuttlebutt that he may potentially go with Jim Harbaugh to the NFL if that scenario plays out. So there will be other opportunities out there for Josh Gaddis, whether it's as a college offensive coordinator or on a pro coaching staff. And he's, I think, being allowed to just work through all that at a reasonably comfortable pace and figure out what's best for everybody involved. And I think they're all on the same page. And I do think it'll play out here in the relative near future, just maybe not exactly like a lot of people would have wanted to. But as that pertains to the offense moving forward, I don't care who the offensive coordinator is, Matt. If you're going to have a good running game and Miami's loading up on offensive linemen, we're seeing, some pretty good recruiting going on at the offensive line position with Javion Cohen and Matt Lee. I mean, of course, there's Mauigoa and Okinola. in an ideal world, you don't have to start these true freshmen day one in September. Like you'd like to be able to, work them in during the course of the year. You got Zion Nelson coming back, Inez Cooper, Matthew McCoy is another guy on the team right now that I know the coaches are very, very high on. So you're building what could evolve into a pretty good offensive line group, which is something we haven't seen here in a long time. You got Mark Fletcher coming in at running back. Parrish, I think, is going to thrive, not having to be the dude by himself. And, we'll see what happens with Chaney. But, Matt, I still think you got to have a tight end that could be an asset in run blocking. And to me, that's what Cam McCormick will bring to the table this fall.
I'm done talking about Cam McCormick. But I will say with Josh Gaddis, if people remember, unfortunately, I have a lot of Michigan friends. And when Josh Gaddis came to Miami, I literally on this show, people can go back and watch, I said to a T, they were happy he left Michigan, which was bizarre to me because he won the Broyles Award, because they averaged however many points and yards. But the fans hated watching that offense. It was this boring, plodding offense where it just relied on the offensive line and a couple of really good running backs, and that was pretty much it. And then they would hit deep shots over the top, when other teams would come up to stop it, once in a while. Fans didn't like it, didn't like the offense. And when I said it on the show, people on CaneSport, the message boards were mad at me. Like I had to literally go on the boards and be like, I'm not the one saying this. This is what my friends are telling me. I'm just sharing it with everyone else. Like, I don't know if he's going to be good or not at
I
Miami,
remember that.
because Miami has a different skill set than Michigan. I said, I'm sure he's not going to have this same offense he ran there at Michigan at Miami. And then we did a whole analysis. His 50-50 pass run ratio at Michigan. We looked at Lashley and the previous 5 years at Miami and how it was like 60-40, 65-35. And we're like, yeah, we're sure he'll adapt because of all the athletes on Miami's roster. And he didn't. He didn't. He kept running the same offense he ran at Michigan. And it's funny. I was just, earlier today, I was just looking at some Gaddis stuff because he's, it's sort of timely with him not being on campus all weekend. Apparently he was sick or whatever, but not really being involved in recruiting at all over the last month from what anyone can tell. And so I started looking at some of these old tweets, and he actually sent out a tweet. I believe I don't know why he'd responded to fans back then, but there were some fans that were critical of him saying it wasn't really his offense, right? And he responded to them and he said, look at my offense since 2018. He says, it's the same offense every year. It's my offense, and that's what Miami got. Miami got his offense. He never changed what he did to fit the personnel he had. And that's honestly, he great, Broyles Award, fantastic, but he's a young offense coordinator. He hasn't seen a lot. He was at Alabama, not as a coordinator, but he got to see what Alabama did for a couple of years. And then he was an offensive coordinator. And he hasn't been at 10 programs. He hasn't been at 5 programs to sort of see for an extended period of time, to see the nuances of how you run different offenses. So he's got one that he knows how to run that he's very comfortable with, and he puts that on whatever team he's on. Like, that's what we're doing because that's what I know, and you will learn my offense. Not, oh, geez, our offensive line's terrible, so I have to basically run a spread, run something I haven't done before, because he's not comfortable with that. And it showed up over and over and over again last year, which is why fans are all calling for him to be fired. But I have no problem with Mario letting him find another job, because the Michigan fans were saying the same thing when he left. They're like, no big deal. People weren't that happy watching that offense, even though it did really well. It's just a boring offense, man. And I'm hoping this isn't something that, people are saying, well, Mario Cristobal's offense is this slow, plodding offensive line attack, run the ball attack, run first attack. I don't buy into that. If Mario gets a top offense coordinator, which I would think he will, he's not going to say to this guy who has hopefully a ton of experience at really high level, doing really great things, hey, don't do that anymore. I want to just run the ball a lot. 50-50 run pass, run first. I don't think that's going to happen. Mario's not like that. Does Mario want to have a great power run game to supplement whatever an offensive coordinator wants to run? Of course. But a power run game can function within any offense. You need a power run game no matter how fast-paced and spread out you are. There's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
Power run game is,
people forget that.
yeah, power run game is great. So it doesn't mean they're just going to run the ball all the time just because they're really good at it. They should be good at everything, like in Alabama, like at Georgia. You don't want to just be good at one thing. And last year, Miami was good at nothing. So, I'll take being good at one thing, but you still got to be good at multiple things.
All right. So in addition to McCormick, Miami had a visit this weekend from a USC wide receiver who's in the transfer portal by the name of Gary Bryant Jr. And that visit seemed to go well. It was noteworthy that Coach Gaddis was not involved, that it was David Cooney, who is an analyst who did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the hosting of Gary Bryant and film study and things like that. Bryant is not in a hurry to pick a school. He doesn't need to be. He still has classes to go take at USC this spring. He will be enrolling at his school of choice in the summertime. So it looks like he's going to take a few more visits, here in the coming weeks. There's talk about him going to Arizona this coming weekend. It might end up being midweek, but obviously visiting UCLA would be an easy thing for him. So we'll have to continue to monitor how this one goes. Miami is also trying to recruit Alabama wide receiver transfer Tyler Harrell. He was a former Louisville receiver. The big thing with Harrell is he has speed, and they are trying to add more speed to the receiver room here. And Bryant has decent speed as well. So these are just a couple guys in the transfer portal to keep an eye on. Miami remains in the market for big defensive tackles. Got to keep an eye on that if any of them become available here in the next few days. But it's starting to look like, at least for this first cycle, Matt, that the transfer portal work is kind of winding down a little bit. And I know you're going to be happy because they didn't go as crazy here with transfers as we might have thought they would initially. And I'm not saying it won't happen in May when there's going to be a whole nother round of transfer portal action without question. But right now, they kept it relatively under control. I think they've added some good pieces in the portal. I know that you're a guy that's not always sold on this portal stuff, and we've gone back and forth on that. But if you're looking at the transfer portal haul right now, how do you feel about it?
The transfer portal.
What they got? Francisco. Francisco Maigoa, Javion Cohen.
Yeah, look, just because you asked me a question, doesn't mean I'm gonna answer it. So I'm gonna go to this. They've taken 7 portal guys so far. Yes. In general, as we move forward, I think 3 to 5 is good. I don't care if they take 15 this year, as long as they're seniors. And the reason being, people hate to hear it, but as you look at the class of 2024, do you know how many seniors are graduating this year, Gary? In 2024? 2023? 8. So you're going to see another ginormous wave of just guys getting kicked off the team. They got to get rid of another 20. They're at 84, I think, right now. They'll be at 85 in a heartbeat. They're going to take another receiver transfer for sure. And I think it'll be the Harrell kid. I don't think Bryant, maybe 30% chance of coming. I talked to him. I didn't get a great vibe about it. But the point's this: if you're asking about transfer portal and numbers, the reason you don't take the sophomores, the redshirt freshmen, the juniors, unless they're can't miss guys like free agents, as I call them, is that 8 number, right? The NCAA is already getting rid of that second-time waiver rule. They already have legislation. Like, those second-time waivers are going to be impossible to get. They don't want people doing it. If you transfer once, that's it. That was your shot. You're stuck at that program, which is fine as long as you work out. But when Miami takes those kids and then says goodbye to them, it's over for them. That's it. No one's taking them. No one's letting a guy sit out a year on their 85 roster anymore. There's no chance. So you're sort of stuck with them, in my opinion. I think it's wrong morally to take a transfer who can't go anywhere else afterwards. You sell them a bill of goods why they're going to be great at your program, and then you get rid of them a year or two later. No. So with that being said, you got 8 guys leaving. You got unlimited numbers for the last time in recruiting in the class of 2024. You've got to think he's going to want to take 25 to 30 top recruits. He should be able to get that many, I would think, in this class, unless things go horribly awry. So if you take 30, right, And that's not including transfers. Let's just say 25, which is a normal number. That's even within the limit of what it normally is. Let's just say 25, which he will take more. 25 minus 8. My math isn't so good, but I think it's 17 guys now you got to kick off your roster that aren't seniors next year. And they've got 35 freshmen on the team this year. And I didn't add it up yet, but I think 18 sophomores. You've got a lot of young guys that you won't know if they've developed yet, and you're already trying to say goodbye to them to bring in these 2024 kids, which is why I'm saying just take as many seniors as you want. Transfer seniors, great. If you've got room in the 85, take as many transfer seniors, graduate seniors as you want. Doesn't bother me at all. Taking this tight end that you've fallen in love with, that you think is going to be the greatest tight end ever, I don't know why, based on anything he's done so far. The best thing he's done so far is get injured. I'm sorry.
He's a big physical blocker. That's
he's really good. He's really good at getting injured and staying in the NCAA to play football. Okay, that's what he's been really good at.
He didn't get injured this last year. He made it through the whole season.
He hasn't done anything on the field. He's been a backup his whole career.
But he stayed healthy this entire season.
That's wonderful. But he's been a backup his whole career. You think he comes to Miami?
He's a big physical.
You have Elijah Arroyo, Jaleel Skinner. You're taking a backup at a lesser program, and you're saying magically he's a starter now.
Finesse tight ends. They're not hammers, man. They're finesse tight ends. You got to have somebody that can block at that position.
Call me crazy. I like guys that can do both, block and catch. That's just me. I don't need a guy who they don't even have to worry about on defense. Oh, that guy's there. That's just a sixth offensive lineman. If you want to run, just line up a sixth offensive lineman, Gary. Why even have a tight end there? Just take Francis Maligoa and put him at tight end. Like, what the hell's the difference, man? I don't need that guy. But he's a senior, so I'm fine with it. Anyway, yeah, take as many seniors as you want, Mario. Don't give me the sophomores that aren't free agents. Don't even give me the juniors that aren't free agents, because 2024 is the last year. You got unlimited numbers. Maybe he can work some serious magic, take 34 and 5-star kids in this class, add that to the last class we had, and you're in the freaking playoffs, man. Like, that's the formula. Not taking some guy who only can block a little bit and has been hurt his whole career. Like, that's the Gary Ferman system. The Matt Shodell system is just slightly different.
All right, well, but listen, I'm with Matt to this degree that I like the number of transfers right now. I don't think there's reaches in there. I think these are guys that are going to help the football team quite a bit this year. To me, there's nothing but positives in that. And I think Miami could feel pretty good about what it got done in traditional recruiting and what it's done in the transfer portal. And now they can target specific pieces here in the lead up to the summer and just see what else becomes available in the portal, both here in the next few days and then in the spring, and kind of put the final finishing touches on the roster for this next coming season. All right, we got some other stories to talk about here today. But first, let's hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
Hey sis, want to play one-on-one? What about 3-on-3? Let's do it. You're not Haley. Wait a minute.
Life Wallet user not detected.
I knew it.
Secure your health information and privacy with Life Wallet. Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
And that women's basketball team is on quite a roll. We will have a story coming up later on today, kind of bringing you guys up to speed on women's basketball for those of you that are interested. I know you don't get a ton of coverage of that. So we sent a Zuby out there yesterday. Tough assignment for the young man. And we'll have that story on the website later on today. All right, let's talk about some of the other stories that are on the website, and a ton. I mean, right now you're seeing an absolute bombardment of recruiting stories, and here's why. There's a lot of offers going out, a lot of 2024 groundwork being laid, and we are just trying to stay on top of it for you guys, trying to give you a little bit of foundation for where things are going here over the next 12 months, really, as it pertains with 2024 recruiting. So as these offers are going out, we're doing stories on a lot of these guys, and you're seeing them on the website. You've had wide receiver Chance Robinson, a high priority target out of St. Thomas Aquinas. We caught up with quarterback Michael Van Buren out of Baltimore, Maryland. He's a 4-star in 2024. He's in the process of setting up a Miami visit. Updates with 4-star safety Kensley Faustin out of Naples, 4-star offensive lineman Eddie Pierre Luis out of Tampa Catholic, 2025 4-star quarterback Ryan Montgomery from Findlay, Ohio. He landed a Miami offer. Michigan State commit Jabari Howard, another 4-star quarterback who tells us that Miami is still in it with him. An FSU commit, CJ Hurd, another 4-star who Miami continues to pursue. A 4-star athlete out of Ocala by the name of Fred Gaskin III. So, like I said, just a whole bunch. That's just some of them. A whole bunch of recruiting stories that are coming your way, looking at the beginnings of the 2024 and even 2025 recruiting efforts. Some of our continuing series that we have continued to introduce to you guys over the weekend. We had our 7-part analysis looking at Miami's recruiting classes from the hit or miss standpoint. And today we wrap it up with our 7-part analysis of the class of 2021 recruiting class, as well as our final look to give you an idea of what Mario Cristobal was facing when he took over the program. And Matt, we've talked a little bit about this last week, but now that we've taken everybody through the entire 7-part series, and we didn't have a Good Morning CaneSport the last day or so of last week, so I thought we'd come back to it a little bit right now. I think in looking at that series here for the last week, I mean, some people might say, yeah, we already knew that things were not great for Mario when he came to Miami. I think when you look at this series on its face value and really look at the data that is contained in those stories, I mean, I think it hits that notion home with a hammer. And, it really was not a fair hand that Mario had to manage this last 12 months.
No, definitely not. As the overall, so people get confused. On3 use this term hit and miss. But all a hit is, and again, people get so frustrated because for some reason Gregory Rousseau is not a hit, and for some reason players that are terrible are hits. It really, a hit, all a hit is, just pretend it's not a hit anymore. It's a multi-year starter, and a miss is somebody who started only 1 year or less. Okay, that's it. So let's start referring to it that way.
And just to point out real quick, Gregory Rousseau is a very rare situation, where he only played a very short period of time and then went right into the NFL.
Yeah, but Miami's
typical recruits not doing that.
Miami's 2 first-rounders were both quote-unquote misses because they only started for 1 year, which was Jalen Phillips is the other one.
But that doesn't
people get annoyed.
If you counted them as hits, it doesn't change the overall picture.
People say, how could these 2 first-rounders be misses? They're getting hung up on that word. So I'm going to refer to them as multi-year starters at Miami and not, because that's just, I don't feel like dealing with the aggravation anymore of people posting about it. So out of the 110 players that were signed, not that came in, okay, transfers included, and that were here at Miami for more than 1 year, not guys who came as graduate seniors and left, or that sort of thing. So over the 5 years of classes, out of those 110 players, 40 of them started multiple years. So that's the bottom line out of it all. So that's 36%. And the On3 study, which is basically says a championship caliber roster has a 60% rate of multi-year starters, because it sort of makes sense. If you sign 20 kids or 18 kids or whatever it is, and if 60% of them go on to start for more than 1 year, that means you're also having time to develop the talent behind them that can start multiple years. And you're not having these guys who are either unhappy and leaving, transferring out, and would be considered not a 2-year starter. And then you have to replace them quickly with either a transfer or another freshman. That's sort of been the cycle Miami's in, right? Guy's not good enough, leaves or doesn't start. You have to bring in either a freshman who's not ready to play, and then he's not developed appropriately, by the time he's starting, or you're bringing in a transfer at that point who could be gone after a year or just doesn't pan out sometimes, as this happened quite a bit, actually, that haven't panned out. Actually, that's something we should probably look at, Gary. Transfers over the last 5 years that just you and I would both agree are hits or misses, like real hits or misses. Like, yeah, they should have taken that guy because he's that good, or they shouldn't have. Let's do that at some point. I'm going to start working on that for this week. That's a good story. Because I have a feeling, what's your guess on the percentage of hits, Gary? I am going to go with 40%, which would just be about above that 36%. What do you think the percent is? That will agree.
I'll say 54.
Okay. All right, so we're going to do that. That's something that people cannot look forward to and skip that show because it's going to be very argumentative, and nobody likes it when Gary interrupts me and I yell over him. So that's going to be a bad show. We'll give you a heads up when that show's coming, so you don't have to watch it. Oh, and should I do do I get to still do restaurant? I don't know if people want my restaurant reviews. I'll do restaurant reviews all day long. I'd rather talk about restaurants than about the Miami Hurricanes until the Miami Hurricanes win more than 5 games. Like, that's just me. So, if you guys ever want some restaurant reviews, you can post in the comments and I'll do it. I don't want to do it if, people might just be really annoyed. Like, why aren't you talking about the Hurricanes? But if you do want me to do it, I will equate food to players. Like, if there's just some really bad item on the menu, I might equate that to a player who just was awful, Bubba Baxa. I ate Bubba Baxa for dinner, something like that. And if it's a really, really great dish, it could be a Devin Hester level, maybe even Gino Torretta. If it's like an old school, like spaghetti and meatballs thing, it would be like Gino Torretta, so we could do it like that, but people can let me know. I love doing restaurant reviews. So, that's it. Is the show over now?
No, it's not over. Okay, so just to wrap it up, the 7-part analysis, hit or miss. You're done with that subject. You've said all you wish to say about that series.
Well, about that, yeah. I mean, look, people can read the series. It was honestly, it was an aggravating thing every day to go on the message boards and see people yelling at me. How can you say so and so is a hit? How can you say so and so is a miss? When I clearly thought I explained in literally the intro that we're just using the system that On3 presented to us with their 60% magic number that came out of the ether from some multiverse where the Hurricanes were probably a lot better than they are here. If there was really multiverses, I gotta think that this is probably the worst multiverse for the Miami Hurricanes. Like, there's no multiverse out there where they're winning 5 games for Mario Cristobal in this first year. There's no way. So we're in like, I watched this movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I highly recommend. Unless you're like Gary's a fan of sex toys. If you're a fan of sex toys, you might like the movie because there's one scene that might be very disturbing to people that don't like sex toys. I will just give you that as a disclaimer. However, this is fantastic multiverse movie. And like, I'm convinced that we're in universe A, which is just like the bad universe for the Miami Hurricanes, because there's no way in these other multiverses for 20 years this has been going on for the Miami Hurricanes. It makes no sense. That's a movie you should all watch, though. So listen, I'll review movies, I'll review restaurants, I'll review whatever you guys want. Like, if you guys want me to talk about the Hurricanes, people don't. I talk about the Hurricanes, people complain I'm too negative. You can listen to me be negative about restaurants, be negative about movies. That's always good too.
Speaking of which, one of our posters on the message board, Raku, was asking about the cookies and if I had tried your what is it, Lebanese Bakery or whatever.
First of all, it's Levan. Well, somebody
Levan,
called me,
whatever.
Somebody called
and
me.
I said, no, I've been eating the $4 crumbles, and he says
like that.
So he disciplined me. He said, Matt was right. Don't get what's in the freezer section. So
no, they are not real Levan. Somebody called me and said they're Levain. And I said to that person, I said, okay, first tell me this. I said, how do you pronounce Zagat, which used to be a food guide that was very popular. It doesn't exist anymore. But most people would say, I think most people pronounced it Zagat, right? But it's actually Zagat. And the person pronounced it wrong. And I said, well, I'll give you one more chance. How do you pronounce Cannes, the city in France? And he said, Cannes, or something like that. Cannes, is that how most people say it? But I happen to know it's Cannes, So I said, listen, you're 0 for 2 on those. I'm going to stick with Levan and not Levain. And that's it. Because I know it's spelled Levain. But I'm pretty sure when I go in there, people are saying Levan cookies, not Levain cookies. So,
The problem is, by the time you get done ordering them, you're paying $10 a cookie because they charge you so much for shipping.
But it's each cookie is 10 cookies built into one. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All right. So also, we continue our 30 for 30 series ranking the top 30 Miami Hurricanes with 30 or more reps of experience. And in the last few days, we've had updates on number 20, Inez Cooper, number 19, Jaleel Skinner, number 18, Frank Ladson. And man, when you could debate the order of these guys, no argument. I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm thinking, you know what? Inez Cooper should be ahead of Frank Ladson. Inez Cooper has a chance to be a superstar offensive lineman at Miami as soon as the start of this next season. But Matt, just in summing up these three guys, Cooper, I'm really personally high on. Skinner, I think, needs to spend his entire offseason on the drugs machine and make them comfortable throwing him the football. And Ladson, man, I don't know what to say about Ladson. I mean, they wanted so much out of him this past year. They got very little. Can Frank Ladson turn the corner this year, or have we seen what he is going to be?
Once again, you're missing the entire purpose of this series, Gary Ferman. The entire purpose.
Of course I am.
The purpose of the series, Frank Ladson, okay, a guy who couldn't play at Clemson, a guy who came to Miami and was a backup, and only basically got on the field because Keyshawn Smith was had some issues, let's face it. And then he got a chance, and he was okay. He was nothing special. He's the 18th best player returning with 30 or more reps, including transfers, okay, mind you. 30 or more reps last year. So that's basically just anybody who played a little bit. He's the 18th best returning player. So for fans who want this team to win 10 or 11 or 12 games, that's great. Everybody wants that. But the reality is a guy that couldn't play at Clemson, a guy who came in last spring and was instantly a backup and never emerged from a backup role until other people failed. And then he wasn't particularly good after that. He was okay. Is the 18th best player on this roster of anybody who's played 30 or more reps. So we're not including true freshmen, basically. Everybody else, he's the 18th best player. That's the story. Not, is Inez Cooper going to be amazing? I think he can be. Jaleel Skinner, can he stop dropping passes? Yeah, maybe. But Frank Ladson is certainly in the top 20, and we have him at 18. And that tells you everything you need to know right now about where this team is and what Mario Cristobal is facing. Because, there's potential. There's potential on every team. Every year you could say, that guy's going to be so much better next year. But based on what we've seen from every single player with 30 or more reps that's returning, we're talking about three guys that basically didn't do a heck of a lot. Inez Cooper did not grade out above 70, which is good. 70 is good. Inez Cooper was not near that. Jaleel Skinner was a backup, third-string guy until injuries made him a backup, second-team guy, and then he didn't do much after that either, and he can't block, okay? He's still got to gain weight. He should have redshirted. And we just talked about Frank Ladson. This is what the Miami Hurricanes are right now. This is why I say, great, take all the senior transfers you want. Don't load up the roster with backups from other teams that just want to come here, The only free agent that I've seen that they've gotten, unless I'm missing somebody, is Javion Cohen. The other guys, man, they're okay. As Gary says, you got to practice with somebody. Great, practice with seniors that are gone. Because the 2024 class needs to be the best class ever in the history of the last 3 years. And if they could do that, get a top 5 class, and then, in other words, a better class than last year is what I'm trying to get at, right?
It's going to be interesting to see them try to do that, though, because there's not a lot of talent in Florida this year. There's not a lot of talent in South Florida.
Well, but it's okay. Mario's always been good at recruiting, period. It doesn't matter where he's recruiting. But, top 5, top 10 class this year. I want him to do better next year. And then you just keep going from there. And it should just keep getting better and better, because if he can just keep growing the program and get some progress and show some progress, that's really what people want to see. And obviously the NIL seems to be in place. So as long as that stays the case, there should be nothing except rainbows and Levain cookies for everybody over the horizon.
All right. While we're in this season of the introspection of the Miami roster, we also start taking a look at the 5 biggest position battles that are going to determine Miami's success in 2023. So in your leisure reading time, make sure you read that story as well. Also, over the weekend, I started one of our question and answer sessions with the fans. A lot of good topics are contained in that. Make sure you check that out. And on the recruiting note, not sure the final landing spot of this is going to be very appealing to Miami fans, but we will continue to follow the saga of 5-star defensive back Ferman McLean. If you read our story over the weekend, Miami coaches, the whole defensive staff went to Lakeland to see Ferman on Friday. Ferman was not there. He was on a plane headed to Colorado and making a visit to Colorado. We will see where that ends up and if this is still a fluid situation. I personally have been on record for several weeks now saying that I didn't like anything I was seeing in the recruitment of Ferman McLean, and I have felt pretty strongly that Miami should move on. And, well, they're running out of time. They may not have a choice but to move on soon. But there's nothing going on there to feel good about or for us to be sitting on the show trumpeting, so we won't. All right, I mentioned hoops earlier in the show. We do show them a little love today. We had a feature on Harlan Beverly over the weekend. Really cool story there. He's been banged up for a few years, but now he's coming back. He's making a contribution. I thought in Saturday's game in NC State that maybe Jim Larinaga played him a little bit too much, but he was trying to reward him for his performance against Boston College at home last week. I think they'll have to find kind of like a middle ground with Harlan Beverly, but you could check out that story. Coming off that tough loss, the Canes will host a really big game tonight in Syracuse, and we'll have coverage of that this evening.
By the way, my wife and my son are big Syracuse fans. Syracuse is not very good. I've been watching some of their games with them because my son's home, still on break, believe it or not. And I think Miami's going to win this game pretty easily, honestly. You know, Syracuse has the same record as Miami in the conference, but I think they're a bottom half ACC team.
But they've been winning, and they typically get better as the year goes on. Jim Boeheim teams have always done that.
We'll see. I mean, I know what I've seen. They have.
But I agree. I mean, this is a big game for Miami tonight. I think they will win it as well. But you know,
I think Miami wins. And you come back and watch this. You tell me if I'm wrong. I'm always right about everything. Miami wins by 8+ points. That's my prediction.
I don't disagree with that. I won't argue that with you. And then also today, we take a look. Cal Friedman, who's one of our interns, he did a story on the evolution of the student section this year and how they've come back to try to be a much greater force in the arena. So that'll be fun for you guys to check out. And like I said, we have Azubi taking a look at the women's basketball team, kind of like a little bit of a mid-season update on how they're doing. So a whole lot of stuff for you guys to absorb on the website today. Hope you enjoy it. We thank you so much for starting your day out with us once again on Good Morning CaneSport. If you like this show, like our YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. Helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come join our community. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every day, both on the website, on this channel, and everywhere else in between. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you again. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.